Ooh, shit. There we go. How we doing, everyone? Welcome to today's YouTube Live, Friday, March 28th. How's everyone doing? Everyone hanging in there? Everyone holding on? Robin W. Yeah. Gang, gang. Here we are. Woo! You know what I find myself doing lately? Like, I'll just be like walking down the street and I'll just go like, woo! And I literally don't even know that I'm doing it. I have like my headphones in and I'm in a fucking store and I literally like make like a hollering sound and everyone's like, what the fuck is going on? And I'm like, oh shit. Like I just was in my own world. I didn't even know that I was around people. So I've been doing that a lot recently, just like hollering random shit at random times. And everyone's like, you are crazy. You are like mentally ill. Jamie said, yeah, I'm mentally ill a little bit. Robin W has a siren emoji. Look at that. Sound the alarms because shit be going off right now. Sound the alarms, baby, because shit be going off. You know what's interesting too? Robin W says constantly waking people up. It's like when you're in a really powerful energy, it's like, and you walk into a space, you can tell that other people are feeling something. Like it's kind of like this like whoosh of sort of energy that comes into this space. And it's like when you're in like a really compressed, contracted sort of space, you can feel how maybe my energy sort of stinks right now. Maybe my energy sort of like smells like shit right now. Maybe people can like something's off with that person's energy. But when your energy's on and you're in like alignment, like people are just curious. They're like, what's going on here? And they don't even know why. And so it's really interesting. Like, I think that just shows how energy doesn't lie, how powerful energy is. That, like, even people that aren't even attuned with energetics at all, they just feel something and they're like, this is like curious. I'm going to have to, like, and you can feel this sort of whoosh. And so I've noticed that a lot recently, which is really, really interesting, which is obviously why when you're in a good energy, you're going to magnetize, you're going to move into spaces of abundance, you're going to draw certain experiences into you. And so much of like the energy that we're in is going to determine what comes into our space, right? Which is why we have to clean up our fucking energy. If we don't clean up our energy, we're just going to draw shit on a stick into our space. So we got to clean it up. So if you are watching this live, you guys, welcome. You know, if you want to pop in the chat, let me know how you're doing. Let me know what's alive in your space right now as we sort of hop into this Friday, March 28th. We're coming to the end of March. If you want to pop in the chat, even just one word, what's really alive in your space today? Today, Friday, this afternoon, what are you really, really feeling in your space? Because we're going to get into a lot of this portal. We're going to get into the opening of this new timeline, because I don't know if you guys feel it, but a new timeline has literally opened in the collective space. I don't know if you guys are feeling that. Let me know in the chat section if you are feeling it. But a new timeline has there's literally a sea that has parted. There's literally a fucking sea that has parted in the collective energy. And so I'm going to kind of talk about like what I feel this is, what I'm sort of attuning to what's going on. But this week, it's like God is just parting the seas. Let me know if you're feeling that. But the seas are literally being parted. And it's like time for you to walk all the way through. And so I think what I'm going to talk about today is a lot of the themes, nervous system, physical, sensation wise, emotional, energetic, pattern wise. I'm going to talk about a lot of themes that I feel personally from working with my clients, from just observing even colleagues or friends or different energy, or just seeing the energy on social media and just seeing the energy around me. So I'm going to talk about some of the really strong themes. I think that's going to be sort of the basis of this live and sort of this transmission, is we're just going to get into talking about some of the really, really strong themes, some of the themes that I really see continuing to show up, what they're about, what this is all for. So that's what I think we're going to get into today here. Robin W says, inspired, pop through. I feel a clearing of the debris happening. Yeah. So it's like there really is sort of this popping experience, this energetic popping, where it's all of a sudden, whoop, it's like you move through that portal and you sort of begin to come out to the other side. Maybe not entirely, but I will say you come out to the other side at a level and a depth that you've never previously experienced. And we'll have to see what happens here with the energy as we move on, say the next month. But potentially what's happening is you're popping through a portal in a way that you've never experienced before, at a depth that you've never experienced before, right? What it feels like to me, actually, that's happening is this new form of consciousness. People that have already been in this path are even deeper into that form of consciousness, and people that potentially were a little curious about it are being thrust into it at a whole other level. Maybe people that weren't even aware of it, or all of a sudden it's starting to be like, what's this about? So much of the energy right now and how crazy this energy is that people are being thrust into this new form of consciousness or this new timeline. And again, it depends where people are at on their path. Some people might be fully being popped through all the way to the other side into the whole new timeline, the whole new form of consciousness. Whereas like Joe Schmo in fucking Indiana might have gotten bit by the divine energy bug. You know, fucking Joe in Indiana, he might have gotten bit by this bug. People that you wouldn't expect might be like, what's going on with the energy? Isn't it crazy how this shit is permeating people and consciousness in a way that we've never seen? This type of consciousness that we've been talking about, this divine energy, it is permeating the collective in such a way that it never has before. And so again, people that might have been curious about this are like, whoa, I think I'm starting to actually kind of believe in this shit. Maybe what Jamie was talking about, he's not actually mentally ill after all, and there is some truth about this. This is happening. This is happening. And so what a lot of people might be experiencing this week in particular, you might be really ungrounded. You might feel really, really chaotic. You might feel this sort of experience where the energy is like swirling and you don't really know what to do. You can't sleep. You can't concentrate. You can't sort of align and sort of ground your energy to be here. You're sort of in a multitude of different places simultaneously. You know, it might feel like you're sort of swirling and sort of all over the place. So a general feeling of chaos could be really, really normal right now. It could be really, really normal. What I'm going to say is that is actually, if you're feeling chaos right now, the truth is that there's some level of truth that you're not actually surrendering to. If you're feeling a sense of chaos, Spirit is asking you to drop in even deeper than you ever have before. A big theme of what we're going through right now is, can you drop into yourself in a way that you've never dropped into yourself before? If we're having resistance right now, the resistance that we're feeling is resistance to truth. That's all it is. If we're feeling resistance right now, we're in resistance to truth. What's basically happening, you guys, is the deepest possible, most pure, holy version of truth is being presented to us. The most pure, godly, holy energy and truth and liberation and freedom is being presented to you in your body. It's being presented to you in your space. So if we notice we're sort of swirling in chaos, what it means is there is some part of our nervous system and there's some part of our physiological self that is fighting what is trying to arrive. We are fighting what is trying to arrive. So this new paradigm is trying to land and ground in your body. If we're feeling sort of this chaos, what's going on here? Some part of us is fighting against truth. We're in resistance to truth. Some truth that is trying to be spoken to us, illuminated to us, or some truth that is trying to arrive in our system. I want to know if you guys feel that. If you're listening to this, do you feel a level of truth that is being presented to you in the most pure, sort of holy, undeniable sort of way? And so, depending where we're at in our journey, where we're at in our nervous system, what our body has the capacity to hold, we might be in chaos right now. We might be in chaos, or we actually might be in the deepest sort of serenity that we've ever experienced. Both those things could be really, really true. You could be in the craziest amount of chaos where your head's spinning and you're like that fucking chick from The Exorcist where your head's spinning around and you're like, holy shit, how is this woman looking backwards all of a sudden? What's going on with her cervical fucking spine? Like that could be happening. But you could also feel like glassy water at dawn in the morning where you're like, whoa, Why is this shit so calm? Why is this shit so calm? Robin W says, yes, I feel a low hum of resistance, but honestly, I'm working with it, digesting it, creating. Yes. What these portals are here to show us, you guys, is can you work with the energy? When we are in resistance, it means we're not surrendering to the energy at some level. Because when you totally fucking surrender to the energy and understand what's happening, you can move and sort of jive and flow with the energy, and you actually surrender to the energy fully. And so, sure, maybe there's a little bit of resistance because you're like for me personally, where I'm at is there's still a little bit of my system not being able to hold it, but it's really, really small. It's really, really small. It's mostly like the craziest calm seas. It's like what we're experiencing is the craziest sort of calm meets the highest amount of expansion and vibrancy. If you want to think of a really healthy nervous system, it is where you're so calm and regulated, you're so grounded, but you're so vibrant. You have so much vibrancy and vitality in your system, right? And typically what happens in a lot of these portals is we're so overwhelmed by the energy that we're swirling. It's chaotic, that we can't hold it. Really, just what we're actually in resistance to is calm in our system. What we're actually in resistance to is actually feeling totally at peace and calm in our system. That's actually what we're in resistance to. Because the highest sort of form of, let's say, the divine in your physiological nervous system is you're going to feel so rooted and so in the earth and so calm, like alarmingly calm, but you're going to have so much vitality and so much vibrancy that you feel like you're holding a astronomical color palette of every shade of every color that has ever existed, but you're holding it regulated. You're holding it calm. This is what this new paradigm is about. So much of what this paradigm or this timeline is about, you guys, is fully inhabiting your power, fully inhabiting your power and unity consciousness. So what you might notice is all the energy centers in your body are trying to align together. Your sacral, your heart, your throat, your face, your crown, everything is trying to align. It's like a full body transmission to try to find unity, right? So you hear a lot of people talk about this term unity consciousness. What that really means at like a somatic physiological level is that every single energy center in your body is harmonizing together. Every single energy center in your body is harmonizing together. So it becomes a full body transmission, which is a complete cellular upgrade. So what it means is, and I always use this term, that God is integration, or God is a complexity of nuance and a vibrancy of this collective consciousness all working together. That's what's trying to happen. That's what unity consciousness is for you, where you feel so deeply connected to the complexity of all your different centers and how they operate and work together. That's what unity consciousness is within you. That's what it is. It means, I mean, to put it very in a surface way, it means all your chakras are humming and vibrating in alignment and balance together, right? And what happens during these portals is your ego gets blasted, right? And then you move into a twilight zone. So always what happens and how the ego integrates spiritually is you lose your ego and then it reintegrates. You lose your ego and then it reintegrates. When we're going through this portal, your ego gets blasted. You move into like a twilight zone. You lose all identity about who you are. And then eventually when the consciousness starts to land or the new timeline starts to form, now your ego recalibrates and reintegrates at a deeper level of source and spirit. We need our ego. Our ego allows us to identify who are we and how do we relate to the greater world, right? We want it to be able to both feel our separation and feel our connection. That's like when the ego is working in a really, really healthy way. So many spiritual people are like total eradication of ego, and that's not realistic. That's not living in the conventional world. That's not actually living in the human self. So we want to be able to feel our ego and feel a separation, but be able to move in the separation and the unity. Right? So what happens is our ego now reintegrates at a new form of consciousness. So when the bubble pops or the paradigm pops, now you begin to, I think I understand sort of what's going on here. I think I understand what's trying to move together, right? But in those spaces where we're really confused, we're really sort of knocked out, our ego's been eradicated. So our ego's been taken from a sledgehammer and it hasn't been rebuilt yet. That's what happens, right? Energetically, your ego gets demolished and then it gets rebuilt more true to your natural source essence. And so that's how like a purification process works in relationship to the ego. Ego gone, ego back in a healthier way, ego gone, ego back in a healthier way. The ego gets demolished and leveled, and then it reintegrates. That's how that process works. So when you start to find a new timeline or a new paradigm of consciousness beginning to ground, it means your ego is reintegrating with a more purified version of yourself. So that's what's happening on the ego sense. All your chakras are trying to come into alignment. There's a lot of really big themes with the throat chakra right now. And so there's a lot of like, when I mean themes with the throat chakra, ways that you haven't been able to speak your truth are trying to be blurted out. Ways you haven't been able to speak your truth are trying to be blurted out to the point where whatever is fucking here, it can't live here anymore. It has to go. Whatever is here, it can't live here anymore. It has to go. Our relationship to our throat, how open our throat is going to be, if you're a woman, how open and integrated your womb is. For a man, your genitals, your cock. So the throat is really going to reveal our root and sacral relationship, right? So if we have a lot of karma we're still holding in the womb or the cock or in our root, then we're going to have a lot of resistance to what's happening from a voice and a throat chakra. And so spirit is asking you, what ways have you not been able to open your throat before? It's to the point where these truths in your throat have probably been here for years, but now, right now, they're coming out. And what should be happening is that you find yourself, these truths are more available to you than they've ever been, right? Because so much of establishing your inner protector and your system is about your relationship to your throat, right? If we hold a lot of other people's energy, if we have a lot of enmeshment trauma, if we take on a lot of other people's pain, it's usually a contraction and compression in the throat. The throat is a big thing that governs an inner protector, right? That allows you to establish like an energetic orbit of protection. When this is really compressed, your womb shut down and we take on a lot. We take on a lot, right? So for people that hold a lot of other people's energy, a lot of familial sort of pain, a lot of familial sort of imprints, that's going to be really revealed in your sacral and throat connection. And so spirit is now saying your divine truth, your purest truth that has ever existed and lived inside of you has to come out. You have to speak that truth. And so potentially ways that we've been afraid of being visible, we've been afraid of being exposed, ways that we've been afraid of being seen, ways that our expression has been shut down. It's all going to be coming up right now. It's all going to be coming up right now. And you're being asked to just claim that truth so unapologetically, right? So the throat chakra is huge. Robin W says, yes, it feels mostly like I'm riding along the surface. Low turbulence. Yeah, that's good. That's great. That's pretty aligned to where I'm at as well and what I'm feeling in my space. That, we want to get to a point, and I think where we want to get to in the nervous system is that whenever all this solar energy comes, we can really work with it, right? We're going to be, if we're a sensitive person, if we're a person who really is attuned to energy, is really on this path, we're going to feel the rises and falls of solar energy. We're going to feel all these astrological events at a deeper, different level. But it's about building the capacity in the system and having the holding in our field that we can work with the energy in a way where we just ride the wave, where we don't get knocked out by it, but we're able to hold it and we're able to sort of move through it, right? And so we're able to surrender to sort of the energy that's happening and we don't fight it. We're able to like attune to the lessons and the breaks and sort of attachment cords that are happening. We're able to just align our system with what's happening, right? And what can happen when we don't have that capacity yet is all this solar energy comes in, it fucks us up, right? Like just chaos. Shit just explodes, right? And so I think for a lot of people, this is happening at different levels, but we want to be able to work with the energy where you're kind of like able to move with it and you don't fight what's coming. You don't fight what's coming. Okay, so some more really, really big themes. Spirit is trying to tell you that things can be easy. Spirit is trying to tell you that things can be easy. A really big theme that's happening right now is we are releasing the pain body. We are releasing the ancestral pain body. So much of moving into this new paradigm is you are releasing the pain body. You are releasing the pain body. And what you're trying to come into is that things can be easy for you, that things don't have to be so hard. So much of what's happening right now is your relationship to abundance. What you might notice is there's this kind of portal opening abundance wise. Maybe someone just gave you a bunch of money. Maybe you're just feeling this energy coming into your space, like, ooh, like what is this? Or maybe to the contrary, you're feeling more scarcity than ever. Or maybe you're feeling some oscillation between the two. So much of what this is right now is about abundance. But what is abundance, right? So a huge theme with abundance is that you have to release the pain body. And I don't mean this in I mean this in a very tangible cellular sense. You have to release the pain body. So much of what's happening right now is you're releasing ancestral pain contracts. You are releasing ancestral pain contracts. All the ways, I'm going to take a sip here of coffee real quick. All the ways, and okay, so let's look at one specific avenue of this. One specific avenue of this. Say you hold a lot of guilt, right? So the way that guilt is essentially the emotion you're holding, where behind that guilt, you're actually holding on to the pain of your ancestors. Your system is holding on to the pain. And guilt, holding that emotion or inhibitory emotion of guilt, is basically holding all the pain of other people that you're holding in place behind it, right? So you're holding the grief and the fear of so many of your ancestors. That's how guilt manifests in the body, right? And guilt is one of the most common things when it comes to why don't you move into your ecstasy? Why don't you move into abundance and make millions of dollars? Why don't you move into joy? Why don't you move into more pleasure than you've ever known? Because we feel guilty. We feel guilty because who are we leaving behind? The amount of people that we're going to leave behind when we shift into that. So guilt keeps that in place. But who are we doing? Who are we being of service to there? We're not being of service to these other people whose energy we're holding. It actually makes us relate to them through forms of covert manipulation, codependence, massive expectations, holding resentment in our body. And all we do is drown ourselves. We hold pain that doesn't belong to us because we feel if we step into our power, we're going to leave too many people behind. You guys want to know the crazy thing? And I think this is a really important part of this video. I was saying this to a client. When you're actually in your power, you don't ever feel bad about being in your power. The only time you ever feel bad about being in your power is when you're actually not in your power. The only time you ever feel bad about being in your power is when you're actually not in your power. Let that land. When you feel bad, you're not in the frequency of your power. Because when you're actually in the frequency of your power, everything goes away. Every fear you've ever had around being in your power goes away when you're in your power. Every fear that you've ever had about being in your power, poof, it's gone when you actually step into your power. So you guys who are listening, do you guys get that? Do you understand that? Or is that a foreign concept? Let me know in the chat there. Is that a foreign concept or do you understand that? When you're actually in your power, you never feel bad about it. That guilt that you're holding from your lineage, it's gone. It's gone. All the people you're worried about being triggered, that's gone. How people are going to abandon me, that fear, it's gone. How are people going to respond to me? I'm too much. It's gone. It's all gone. Literally, every single fear you've ever held your entire life is gone around being in your power. And you want to know why? I remember I was even talking to a friend the other day, and he was kind of like alluding to me that my energy was triggering him, or it was too much. I forget just what he said. And it happened on a day when it was probably the most grounded and embodied I've ever been in divine energy in my body. Like the point where um I felt like a glassy calm on the water at like 6 a.m. combined with this vibrancy. And it was the day where he was kind of talking about my energy. And I just said very, very just cleanly and straightly, whatever you're feeling about my energy has absolutely nothing to do with me. It doesn't even have a percentage of 0.1 of 1% to do with me. And that's all I said. So if you're being confronted by it, it has nothing to do with me. And this is the answer to that question. This is the answer to that question. When you're truly in your power, it is the most clean thing you've ever experienced in your entire life. If someone feels any which way about it, it has nothing to do with you. You are in the most embodied frequency of truth in your body and your system. Your ego has literally been reintegrated with the most pure version of source in your system. All your systems are working together. You're firmly landed down in your root. You're calm and regulated in your system, and you're vibrant. You feel holy. If people are triggered by you, it doesn't even have 1% to do with you. And when you're in your power, you feel this so true. It's undeniable. There's not one part of you that doubts your energy and the purity of that energy inside of you. Think about what happens in that space. Honestly, if people try to throw rocks at you, you can't even feel it. If people try to throw rocks at you, you can't even feel it because you're in the new paradigm. When you fully move into your power in the truest way in your system, you literally move to a whole new vortex, orbit, and paradigm. You move into a whole new orbit and paradigm. Someone doesn't like you, your system doesn't even flex. Your system doesn't even flinch. People are triggered by you or whatever it is, it doesn't even register. Because you're so in the know of the energy inside of you. You're like, oh, like this is the most true thing that I've ever experienced. And that's what happens. You become the embodiment of truth. And that's what's happening right now. Spirit is trying to ask you, will you become the embodiment of truth that literally feels holy in your body? That is exactly what's trying to happen. And so if we feel resistance to this, that's what we're in resistance to. We're afraid of truth. Being afraid of our power is being afraid of the truth. Power and truth are synonymous. The most powerful people that are in the cellular embodiment of their truth in their cellular DNA that is directly aligned with source. And these are the people, when you're in that space and presence, just being in that energy, it alchemizes you and it shifts you. When you're in this energy, if you're a practitioner, you don't even have to say anything. Someone can just sit across from you and their body and their cells are going to fucking rearrange. That's what happens when truth speaks that loud. So I'm going to say this again for people who maybe have come in the middle of this. If you have any apprehension about your power, it's because you're not in your power. If you have any hesitation about your power, it's because you're not in your power. If you have any guilt over your power, it's because you're not in your power. And I guarantee that you've probably never really truly lived there for a prolonged period of time. And that's what Spirit's asking you right now. There is going to be a literal split in the consciousness right now, where people are going to move closer to this and other people are going to retreat and run away from it. There is literally going to be a split in consciousness that's going to happen. This is unity consciousness and divine consciousness, which is just the total embodiment of truth. And Spirit is asking you, can you allow things to be easy? Think about the abundance that will come into your life when you're in that level of truth. And a big piece that's trying to happen is your power. So, for example, if you felt more calm than you've ever felt this week, that's you. That's you. That's who you are. Maybe you were birthed into the world. You were being incubated in the womb of your mother who was dysregulated, had a dysregulated system. This is your universal rebirthing. This is your universal rebirthing. Who would you be without your anxiety? Who would you be without your depression? Who would you be without the crippling fear? Who would you be without all those ancestral pain contracts that you're holding on to? Spirit's trying to show you who you are and who you've always been. Who you are and who you've always been. So it's this collective rebirthing into your innate sort of divinity within you. And so what's happening, you guys? Our ego is leveled. A big piece of what's happening is all your survival physiology of all the ways that you have felt trapped, all the ways that you have felt helpless, all the ways that you have felt isolated and alone from your lifetime and your ancestors have bubbled to the surface, and it is being processed and digested through you. That's what's happening. That's why your ego is getting so fucked up. All the ways that you have not been able to feel this glassy sort of calm in your nervous system. This new paradigm, imagine the most vibrant energy you've ever experienced, but yet your nervous system is in a dead fucking calm. That's what this is. That's what this new paradigm is. Your power and your divine consciousness is trying to root all the way. All the way. And when you let go of that pain body, you break all those ancestral karmic contracts and you change the course of your life. And you move into a whole new timeline and paradigm where just like you feel this expansive field of God, but you're so in your root. And when you're in your root and you feel that expansiveness, what it means is you have recalibrated your cells at ground zero. It means you have recalibrated your cells at ground zero, your root. And so people who might really be struggling right now are people who have never really opened their root or their sacral. And when you've never really opened your root or your root and your sacral is the energetic exit point. The root and the sacral are the energetic exit points for integration. So when our root and our sacral are really blocked, we're probably going to have a hard time really integrating the consciousness that's coming now. And so the amount of chaos that we're going to feel is how much can our root and our sacral hold, right? If we've never really opened the root or the sacral, all this energy is coming, but it's not properly integrating and it can't exit. So it just swirls and it cycles, right? But when the root and the sacral opens, now that energy can alchemize and come back down into the earth. And that's where the calm happens. And when your root really integrates at this level, what you've done is you've completely rewired the nervous system of your lineage. When your root chakra fully integrates with this energy and it holds this power completely at rest and regulation, you have realchemized the cellular system of the ancestors. Now think about what happens here. You hold that power fully at rest. And when I said, if you have any apprehension about your power, any fear over your power, you're not actually in your power. And you probably never have been. Because when you're there, when you're truly in your power, you're like, how could I or how could anyone else ever in the history of Earth felt bad about this? How could someone ever feel bad about this? Because when you're there, the energy that you feel, if you were to put that in a capsule or a bottle, it would heal planet Earth. When you're in your power and when you're in your ancient power, what you feel in your system, if you were to put in a pill, it would heal planet Earth. How can you feel bad about that? How could anyone ever feel bad about that? And what happens when you're here? Maybe you see the grief of other people and you can have empathy, but you're not connected to it. You're not connected to it. So maybe you see the pain of your parents or the pain of your ancestors, but it feels so far away. It feels so far away. That's why when you see people so invested in like what's happening politically, I'm like, you're stuck in the fucking matrix. You're stuck in the fucking rat race. Because when you're truly in your power, all of that's going to feel in a different world, a different planet. It doesn't mean you're disconnected from it, but you're going to see all the puppet strings. You're going to see everything that's happening. And now when you truly move into your power, everything shifts. You see everything from a different vantage point. And you hold no guilt. You hold no guilt. And you know, if someone has a problem with it, it doesn't even have a speck to do with you. Do you know the power of that, you guys? Do you know the power of that? It means when you're in your power, you're like in a very genuine way, I earned this. I deserve this. This is actually a normal place. This is my normal. This is like I'm in the most just authentic truth of who I am and who God intended me to be. You don't feel bad about it. And and why are things hard in your life? Why do you suffer? Why do you suffer so much? We don't give ourselves permission for things to be easy. Often we're holding on to a lot of pain that holds on to these cords. So if you've held on to this ancestral pain body, it's gripped to you and held to you through these energetic cords and these attachment cords that you've held on to. And you're like, well, I can't move into my power because I feel guilty about it. Well, you're not actually in your power. You know what the whole thing is, guys? We always anticipate something. We anticipate something. Most people are not in their power. I'll tell you this, the reason why most people suffer is because they're in anticipation of the threat of their power. Do you guys understand that? One of the most number one reasons why human beings suffer is because we live in perpetual threat and anticipation of our power. That's what keeps people in suffering. We live in anticipated threat of our power. And what happens here, you guys, is we make the association that our power is bad. So is it that our power is bad, or is it that the anticipation or the fear-driven squirrel brain, how it's perceiving power, is bad? That's why when you're in your power, you trigger people. And people try to tell you there's something wrong with you or that you're too much. No, everything's right with you, but the frequency that you're at, their system can't hold it. And so it floods them and it overwhelms their system. And so because of the overwhelm, they see it as a threat. It's outside their ego's identification. That's why when people will see certain people talking about these spiritual processes, they'll just label it as woo-woo because they see it as a threat, right? And then sometimes people, we assume that it means there's something wrong with us. And the truth is, they're just speaking from their current capacity of their system. And the vibration and frequency that you're holding is too much for their system. It floods them. And so they perceive it as a threat. And so your power is not the problem. It's the anticipated threat of your power, because when you're actually in your power, you're like, how did I ever feel threatened about this? How did I ever anticipate this as bad? How did I ever? When you're truly in your power, that's all you're going to think. That's all we're going to think. When you're truly in your power, how could anyone ever have any sort of worry about this? It's the most pure, clean, safe place you've ever experienced. And now, when people have a problem with you, you see everything. And you literally, you have so much integrity of where you're at in your body that nothing impacts you. You're like, okay, yeah. You're so in fucking truth that it has nothing to do with you. You're doing your part. You're doing what you're supposed to. But everyone will relate to you from their own mirrored capacity of their system. And it's a lot easier when we're overwhelmed by something to label it as bad. Because if we don't do that, then now we open ourselves up to the unconscious, dormant, stagnant parts of us that we also anticipate with threat. When someone is that free, it shows where we're not free in the body, and that's what's confronting about it. When you truly move into your power, all it feels like is arrival. All it feels like arrival. It feels like you literally move into heaven. And you're like, this is what every human being wants. This is what every single human being is searching for. Like, and that person who maybe they're triggered by you, they want what I'm feeling. Like, every human being wants this, because this is just truth, and it's freedom, and it's full arrival inside of yourself. But you guys, the price we have to pay to arrive here is we have to go through experiences where we don't think we're going to be okay. We have to go through an experience where we genuinely don't know if we're going to make it out alive. The stakes have to be this high in the system. So when you truly go through a death and rebirth process through these portals, you are literally going through an experience where you genuinely think you're dying. Your nervous system. And so what happens, you guys, is the fight or flight response is ignited in your system. But what happens here is you move through it in a different way. So what's happening in a portal like this is people's deepest sort of feelings of being trapped in their nervous system, or feelings of anguish and terror and helplessness are being ignited in the system. And so usually what happens, and that's where the resistance comes. And so this is where you're being asked to surrender beyond the death and beyond the pain. And so that's why I say it's like working with a fight or a flight response differently. You know, when a fight or a flight response comes and we find ways to escape, we find ways to avoid, to suppress, whatever we need to do to find a coping mechanism with what's happening internally, that means we're in resistance. And so if we haven't been able to get to the glassy, calm water, it's because we're fighting the death at some level. Because when you move into the pain and the fight,